he's talking about what the question was. So. Right. Well, we'll just wait while we get going. Bruce is getting Bruce is Mr. Thumbs up, I think so. If you like, we just put the microphone on. That's right. Right, have a seat. And
I would just like to thank you for inviting me here this morning to join with you. It's a pleasure to be entrusted with this project and the support of the committee for us to take this challenging project on. I just want to outline what we see in terms of the team required to bring the project together, some timelines, obviously some indications around the Building Act and those things that are required to do by law to make it not only safe but also compliant with today's building code, which will also impact on our budget. I'll just cover off that as well. So I'm David Booth and I'm a project manager at a company called Feldspar. I've been a professional project management consultant for over 20 years now, and my background is construction and quantity surveying prior to that. So upon being entrusted with your projects to strengthen the church hall, we brought together a team which was started by Bruce Chisholm of Hanlon's. Bruce had come up with a concept design to strengthen the hall, and Chizzy George, quantity surveyors, had done some initial budgeting. So we've stepped into the room from that point, and we brought together an architect, a fire engineer, and other specialists, sort of things such as asbestos, which are quite a big issue we need to be careful of in today's build. It was a very common product and lots of materials, and often it's found in floor coverings, vinyl, etc., and some sheeting. So we just need to be confident that when we're going to do the build, that the workers are safe and that we've checked those sort of regulatory things out. So since our involvement, we've brought together the full project team, as alluded to, Bruce, Craig McAuliffe Architects, and our fire engineer, etc. And we've had an initial design meeting just to brief the team on the project. And we've been up and the architect has done a site measure to get accurate plans of the building so that all the rest of the team have an accurate model to then work off. So plans, elevations, etc. have been drawn of your building. And from there, the other disciplines have now taken the ball and are looking into these specialist fields. One of the early concerns we had is the hall bounds your neighbour. The driveway is the boundary with the wall of your building, and that wall has very large windows which obviously get the afternoon sun and a lovely feature of the building. But from a fire perspective, if there was to be a fire on the church hall, the issues for your neighbour being able to safely pass the building or retreat from their house was an initial concern. Our fire engineer has assured us though that we could tick that one off in terms of a risk, that it's an existing situation, and because of the width of the driveway there was no other structure in close proximity, that we are safe to retain those windows. So that was a huge relief just in terms of potential impact on our budget, so we're quite pleased as our first discovery. Our fire engineer has been through the hall, and because we have an activity on the upper level and activity on the lower level, and one stair plus our fire egress, which has been maintained, as I understand, by the committee, we do have an issue of fire separation. So if a fire was to break out on the ground floor, we need to make sure those people on the upper floor can safely get out of the building. So there will be some fire raising to the underside of the ceiling of the toy library and across the function area that you use as your tea room, etc., meeting area. So that'll mean some fire rated linings to separate those two areas to make it safe. And the other interesting complication we have is that the church here is joined to the hall by the wee link, which obviously makes it lovely and weatherproof for moving between the two spaces from here into the hall. But they're deemed to be one building because of that link. So we'll need to do some upgrades to the fire alarms in this building. And once again, should there be a fire in the kitchen, for example, or the hall, we know that we need to safely exit from the church here and move out of the building. So there will be an upgrade of fire alarms to be required as part of that work. So all the technical people are putting their inputs together, and that's just a wee summary of a couple of the items that we've discovered already. We'll bring all those issues and opportunities together in terms of the final design, or not the final design, the early design, and then we'll meet with the committee that's been assembled for us to interact with as to what we do on the inside of the building once we're finished. And that means the floor coverings and other things that will be interfered with as we put the new structural steel in. We need to cut holes in the building, and we need to remove some of the original fabrics such as the wall panelling, flooring, etc. So when we put it all back together, what sort of level of redecoration do we do, or consequential redecoration will we do, for example. So we'll work with you as a team to make sure we understand what you'd like to be as a finished product and deliver that. In parallel to that, budget's obviously a very, very big thing, and looking at the cost of the build. Now, we've had an initial quantity surveyor's estimate that was done for very early concept prior to us being involved. And construction values, unfortunately, due to inflation and supply of materials, partly due to COVID and other things in terms of shipping, have gone up by about 35% since that estimate was done. So there's some of the challenges we have in terms of any project that we're involved in, and particularly for this community project. We've been very cognizant, obviously, to try and maintain a sensible budget, that this is affordable, and we still do a really good job. So one of the things we'll be doing once we have the design ideas together is having that repriced. Parallel to our design team, we're going to involve a building contractor, Stewart Construction, and we're going to involve a structural steel fabricator, Laurie Falls of Zeal Steel, to help us with that early budgeting advice. So it's actually tested in real value with the firm that's actually going to do it, and how we're going to build it. Putting large pieces of structural steel, like we can see these red steel elements in this building, are going to be similar to what we see inside the church hall, and they'll be in 3 regular intervals. But how do we get it inside an existing building? Those are the things that our build team will help us with in terms of how to get the steel in and stand it up in the building. So we're looking forward to their input, and they'll come and join us around the table in the next fortnight, as we need an initial design for them to be tested against. So that's sort of the key milestones. So then in terms of time and also your existing tenants, we'll just unpack that a little bit. Obviously, there's a wonderful thing in terms of the hall. It has 2 really good community organisations that interact with the local community here in terms of the toy library, which we think is really amazing, and also the judo club. So the amount of young people coming and interacting in this building, families, we think that's a really important part of what the hall achieves, and we've got to make sure that we can bring those people back, because we'll need to move them out to do the work. It's going to be quite invasive. So already discussions are happening, I believe, with the Anglican Church, is that right, Ken? For the toy library to have a temporary home there, and we also have an idea of a building. We might be able to find a home for the judo club to move in temporarily before the work's done, and they can come back and be a key part of this community. So looking forward to making sure that can happen as part of the project. So timeframes, we're currently in the very initial phase of our design. And we'll probably have another 2 to 3 months to finish our design, and that's just working through in an ordered manner to bring together all the detailed drawings that we'll need for the project. Building consent will be the next phase, and our council has a regulatory time of 30 working days, but due to the amount of changes in regulation, that generally takes probably another 30 days longer, just due to questions and answers that happen during that building consent process. Once we have that, then we'll look to start, and we're targeting around an October start this year on the physical building work, and a completion time about this time next year to complete the work. And as part of some of that consequential work, we'll need to fully scaffold the building so we can safely do the work. One of the things that will also happen is the parapets, which is from above the gutter line up, they'll need to be removed and made into a new concrete parapet, which will be part of the strengthening. So we'll need to safely scaffold the full perimeter of the building to do that. The roof is another element we're looking at. To get the steel in, we may need to remove parts of the roof, and it may be that we replace the roof at that time. But some of these things will be options that we could defer based on budget, so we're not going to just say, oh, we need to do everything and have it perfect. There may be some sensible decisions that we're primarily going to strengthen the building and get it back to being safe to use. And so re-roofing might be an option to say, well, that can still be done as maintenance as you do with this building or any other building like your own home. You don't necessarily need to do everything at the outset. So those will be decisions we'll bring to the committee that's been established and test as we unpack our budget. So that's a lot of talking from me, and hope that's given you a really good overview, and really happy to answer any questions or concerns that anybody has about the project and what we're up to.
Anybody want to ask a question, please indicate. We'll switch it on.
Switch it.
You switch it. Anybody got a question?
Thank you. I'm Ewan Thompson. I used to be involved greatly with the Glenavon Methodist Church in North East Valley, and during the time there it was really completely changed and earthquake strengthened, and it's used by the Montessori, North East Valley Montessori group. At the time, my partner was a interior designer, and he gave quite a lot of help with choosing fabrics, colours and so on, and it really made a beautiful environment. Is there any provision for interior design in the budget? It's not something that I can help with, and my partner's dead, so with somebody else. It is an important aspect of it.
Thanks, Ewan, and I respect that, and you're really part in that project. How you interact with the building and how it looks and feels is a very important part, so I do acknowledge the interior design will be something in terms of how we want the building to feel welcoming, and the choice of colours that's to impact your mood. Our architect, Craig McCullough, is a fully qualified architect, and as part of the architectural discipline, they have the skills around that. But we could perhaps look to enhance that with the specialist interior designers' input if we feel we need to. At this point in time, we don't. But as we work with the committee, if we feel that to get the recipe right, if I use my words, certainly we consider that. But what colour, the selection of fabrics and materials will be a very important part of it, and we'll consider with that design team. I hope that answers your question.
I'm Alison Rees. I was involved in the roof quite a lot for maintenance on the hall a few years ago. The fastenings where the roof nails go into the stacking underneath are a bit unreliable. They tend to pop out in time. But the guttering was, the internal guttering between the parapet and the roof was always something of an issue. Will that be disturbed or changed because the parapet's going to be taken off?
Yes, certainly. So that'll be a very key part of it, because the parapets are coming away, which supports the outside face of the gutter. The whole internal gutter will be removed as part of that work, and the structural steel will be going down the line of the gutter. So it will be impacting where each of those portals go down. So we will remake the gutter, and it's an opportunity to do a really good job of replacing that. As you're probably aware, there's been a leak in the front corner, which Foley's busy repairing, and the condition of the gutter has been highlighted. So one of the key things is we'll look at replacing the gutter at the same time, and it's a perfect opportunity to do it. We're aware of the sarking underneath the iron, which the iron is fixed to, so sarking walls are thick walls, about this sort of size for those who are not familiar with the term, and then they continuously along the roof, and the roofing is fixed to that. The condition of that sarking, I think with moisture coming down the original fixings, has probably got some softening of those sarking boards in places as well. So if we do look at the roof, we may look to use screw fixings, which are a lot stronger than nails, which will bite into the timber. But also we may look at resheeting the whole roof due to the impact of the gutter, and then to get the lap of the internal gutter back under the roofing. So by consequence, the roof may also have to go and be replaced. I understand, and even with the aerial photos, you can see it's long run roofing. It is actually not that old by comparison to the age of the hall, but still it's well into its life. So it'll be one thing we do consider and bring back to the committee.
Thank you.
The question of fire escapes from up before, stairwell is, it's there, but with the judo people, there could be the crowd. Does there has to be an alternative? And if so, what sort of alternative or extra escape is there to be?
Yes, so the question was just around fire arrests for the records and the numbers of people for the judo club. So yes, it will be considered. The other thing we need to take into account is that if the judo club was to disband or go somewhere else in time, what would the space be used for? So we've got to look at the crowd loading if it was to be used as it was intended, say for a performance, and the stage be used, or whatever it could be in the future. So yes, we do look at crowd loadings, and that's calculated by the square metre area of the floor and the number of people you could physically put in there. The current external fire egress stair does come into account in a positive way. And because it's an existing stair, it's not as well designed as a new stair would be, but because it's existing, you get dispensation. That's what's called near as practical to the current building code, so we're allowed to keep that stair, and that will be the second fire egress. Yep.
Hello, I'm Barbara Weavers, and I look after the casual bookings of the church and the hall. I'm assuming I'm to continue taking bookings for the church, no problem, but from October, nothing from October for the lounge area.
Yes, that's right. So we'll work more closely with you as we refine those dates. If that design is done quicker, that date may move forward a little bit, but at this point in time, yes, that would be the wise provision from October. The other thing I'll touch on is the toilets, which I omitted in my first chat, is that obviously we need provision of toilets, and your current toilets are in the hall. Obviously there's an external door to the toilets that we could potentially use, but I think what we may look at is the provision of a temporary toilet, and we're not talking about one of those plastic portable things that you would see at a concert or an event, something that's more practical for I can be so kind as the age of the audience I have here, that will be practical to use. So that's one of the ideas we have at the moment, and the current toilets will be upgraded with new floor finishes and just a little bit more pleasant to use. But we do have the right number of toilets, once again, for the number of occupants, so we don't need to increase them. More facilities will just be upgrading to a more pleasant facility.
Hi, I'm Greg Hewson. Do you take account of the heavy snowfall? Do you have to account for the weight of the snow accumulating on the roof when you do the earthquake strengthening? Because that can add quite a bit of extra weight every 5 years.
Yes, we certainly do, and the building code is set up regionally, and Dunedin, the target area, is in a higher, obviously, snow loading than other parts of the country. So yes, our engineers calculate based on this being a potential heavy snow load occurring, and as we know, when we do get a snow here, it can be quite severe, particularly here on the hill suburbs, so we definitely will be factored into the design. We'll also consider that with the gutters, because we have a parapet wall, the gutter is effectively internal, and the snow can then build up, and it can then moisture and water can ingress up under the roofing and come down inside the linings. So mainly with snow grates or other things, such as the detailing of the gutters, or putting more overflow pipes in. So yes, we will definitely be considering that as part of the design.
George Davis, congregational member. Two things. First one, the beam that goes around, the bond beam that goes around the top of the ground floor, bottom of the first floor, is internal and was designed that way. I take it that all the rest of the structures that you're talking about will be external, like slightly more industrial like this. Yes?
Yes, they will be, so they'll be potentially exposed. Here it's being deliberate to show them off as arches. We could box them in and put chipboard around them and paint them out with the wall, or bring the original panelling back around, or they could be exposed. We like the idea of exposing. We've involved in a number of heritage buildings, as people can actually see and understand that the building has been strengthened. It's very obvious to people And being in the construction industry, and I know some people are former members of the construction industry here, I actually like the look of the steel and the solidity of it. It's something I think that should be expressed. Not everybody agrees with that, but I do. I think it's really great.
Yeah, the second question was about parking. Do you think the DCC will ask for greater compliance over the issue of parking, which is a problem at the moment?
No, I don't think we'll encounter that issue. And it's because it's an existing situation and we're looking to enhance it, i.e. the hall, we're looking to improve it from a fire safety point of view and a strengthening point of view, that it would be unkind of the city to force more parking on us because that would be impractical to achieve. I know we do have grass and land to the side of the building, but we would be resistant to that in terms of from a cost point of view. It would make the project prohibitive in my view. If that was the case, we would look to perhaps ask the council for consideration or in staging it and saying, look, we may look at that in the future, but see if we could stage the project to put that further down the track. And if the church was to desire to do that, something we would like to do, we'd certainly investigate it, but we're not here to try and pile stacks on the mill to say, to make the project untenable. So we will have a pre-application meeting with council and we'll meet with their Three Waters team around foul sewer, stormwater. We will meet with the eroding team and the building compliance team, just understand any concerns they may have or things that we'll need to comply with, such as that, as we go forward. So before we go and apply, we'll know any of those issues, which we'll also bring back to the committee. But I think it's unlikely that it'll make us add more parking.
Currently I'm involved with lawn mowing in the church, and I was just thinking site establishment. Will you be, if this building is being used as a church and that's a construction site, will you be creating sheds or something onto the lawn at the back so you've got a workshop and a lockup?
Yeah, highly likely the lawn is quite attractive space for us to do that, yes. So we might be relieving some of your all-known duties in a small patch. And we also have the scaffold coming down as well, which will encroach.
Just the level of invasiveness of the construction, bringing the expectation that you will have to deal with insulation and double glazing, for example.
So being a hall and not a home, we don't need to do a lot of that stuff, which is good. And that's not needed or practical. You intermittently use the hall. So if it was a house, you try and keep your heat in all day. You're intermittently using it to heat it for short periods of time. So we wouldn't be looking at double glazing and we wouldn't be required to, or insulation. While we're re-roofing, it may make sense to do that. So once again, where it's practical, we would certainly look to do it, yes. Because the more improvements you can, will make it more usable as well.
Kirsten, just to ask about the numbers of people that we are talking about. The toy library and the judo people will have their ideas. This church I've just been looking around probably is really full with 100. But I'm not sure that we're thinking ahead that we want to provide, or do we want to provide for 100 people or some other figure? Do you need that sort of, or have you received some guidance as to the sort of numbers of our community that underlie all the decisions that are being made really about the use of the property?
That's something we'll unpack with the committee, the build committee, and we have a loose idea of that at the moment, but we'll firm that up. And we also have to set for future proofing beyond what we think the hall's been used for today. We're going to strengthen it's going to last for many, many years to come. So we need to think of future proofing beyond the judo club potentially. But we'll bring those ideas back to the table. and we say it will cost this. If we've got to say 100 people in, if we restrict to 50 people, which we can do by mechanisms and a design and a fire reports by stating that's how the building will be used, we can manage that. We'll bring the options back to the table so we can understand that as well. Yeah. Certainly had a good workout this morning.
When's the next meeting date?
We'd look to have an initial meeting with the committee probably within a fortnight, so we'll look to arrange that very shortly because we have enough information now to bring something substantive back.
Sounds like it might be working now. Just wanted to check any implication on worship services here and this particular building, implications for that.
That's a very good question. So we don't anticipate any impact on this building. There are obviously interfaces for the fire alarms that I've talked about, which are happening in here, the electrical supply and those things. So there is some connection. But as the building is primarily used on Sunday, and our builders won't be here, we can make sure things are returned in a safe and usable manner for the weekends, and also with the hall use and other things, we'll stay in close touch about any of those implications. But that's something we'll work closely with our build team and through communication with the committee. But our intention is to make sure this is usable throughout the whole build.
Just so you know, we just spent $4,000 with Foley's repairing the leak along the west side of the hall, and it sounds really stupid when we've just been told that's going to be taken down, but we have to protect the building up till October. So we've spent some money already, and just in terms of budget, talking with Lindley, who looks after the budget, we've got about $750,000 that hopefully we won't spend all of it, but is applicable for what Dave's looking at. So there is sufficient money hopefully to cope with what's the sort of impacts that Dave's talking about, because the original pricing we had has increased 35%, as you might have heard, just for building costs, let alone everything else. So hopefully that side of things is completely manageable for the church, and we can move ahead now with Mr. Booth and his team working with our committee from the church, which obviously can be changed. If you want to find someone with colours and things and we haven't got expertise, we can ask someone who can look after that out of the congregation better than the people we've got perhaps. It's very flexible. So thanks very much, Dave, and on behalf of the congregation, I'm sorry I haven't got a gift for you, just like to thank you, and we're excited to move ahead. We've got an idea time frame wise now that October is probably when building will commence if everything goes well, which is great. I hope everybody's got it, and if anybody else has got any questions for Dave, please ask them now. We're not going to ask them to come back again, unless perhaps at the end when we can actually have an opening and congratulate you on the project. So thanks very much for staying and listening to it, and thanks very much, Dave, for coming and sort of getting everybody up to date on where we are.
That's welcome.
And we've recorded it, so it will be available if you know of anybody who's interested that isn't here today that can catch up and catch the question, Dave talking and then the questions as well. So thanks everybody. Other than that, go out and enjoy the rest of the day, and hopefully it gets to 13 degrees.
All going well? I think so. Discussion. Obviously, people are interested. Oh, there are. Yes. As we did it. Exactly. It is. Actually, it's a little, I mean, it restricts you. You can't have a funeral there, for example. I mean, you could, but it's used, so much. And so, I mean, that's one of the important things that happens in the church. And if it's rented out to some other organisation all the time, then you don't have that ability. So they might do here. Oh, absolutely. I mean, people, but particularly with the older people at Glenavon, they've had that long association. That's changed now. So there's sort of compromise. There has to be. It was a dying building in a dying church congregation. Wayne, since I was involved. Not that I'm taking responsibility for it. No, you can't. It's a lovely little base. Keep it on the board. Some of the groups there are quite Taylor Darts Association, the age and the Rock and Roll Revival Club in Southern So it's owned by 4 different groups? It's sold by the council for $1 to the group, and they put the properties in. Okay, so some pictures. Is that right? Actually, she says the subtitles so well. She says she can pick up the words that David says, and there's sometimes that she doesn't understand this in the English. So it's all, it's a program that does it. So some of them right and some of them wrong. I realised that it was a subtle maybe. Yes, there's a couple of things, some people think it's really good. And they accept the I didn't know that they had subtitles. You can sometimes switch your computer on to show subtitles. Were you here at last week's service? No. Yes. Was that it? Was that last week or was that the previous week? They get it wrong because they get nonsense. On the whole, it might be 85% wrong. I haven't talked to Mary Thompson. There were a lot of subtitles on the screen that were in Turkish or whatever, I don't know. But when it was here in the church, the subtitles weren't in English. Oh, they were in English. It seemed to me like the season female. We can switch on here, show closed captions. That's it's just generally usually show closed captions. I like that. But it's in because again, it's a funny thing. Because as you indicate to me that we need to resolve the speed for them. So we've got all these people to sample from. With building, you guys, if there's any. Just any initial inquiries. So I don't know. Just give me an idea.
Yeah. I like to get the mileage. Yeah.
No, well, I find it very helpful for I do.
Well, where he likes this sometimes she thinks that you're right from here, Bruce. I've just got to get this out and take Sally home. You're part of it. Yeah. So those two are, with Richard and Dave Stewart, are our sort of church committee. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. Well, it may not be that much, but that's, I've got to give you midway that we've got from here. That's from the sale of Broadways and Wellesley's, the old church on Hillside Road, Weasley. If you don't spend it, you might not. Well, that's the thing, it's ring fence for buildings.
I know. We have the same thing.
And we may not use all of it, but just to try to reassure people that when you're talking to Dave and he's talking, this might be an issue and that might, that we seem to have enough money to be able to manage, to cover those sort of contingencies is the word, isn't it, if they arrive.
We've searched the
Well, head off, your home to reach by the avenue. We haven't forgotten the
Bruce is going to use that bonding or drive the steel.
Thank you very much, that was very good.
Thank
Very
you.
good, that was wonderful.
A lot of tough questions there. I was
Well, I was surprised at the range of people, but interesting. Like it's interesting having the building here for the community in the future. No, there was other questions. Yeah, very good. Great presentation.
Thank you. I look forward to being in touch with the
Yeah.
committee and
That's
working way
fine.
through.
Thank you.
Okay. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for your questions.